Next up, we have Nick Hobson, and Nick is going to be presenting Project Prometheus. Wow, what, like, a name like that is going to be like, I'm expecting things popping out of people's chests and Sigourney Weaver, like, doing things. So, Nick, would you please share your screen and take us on to Project Prometheus?
Thanks for the introduction. My name is Nick Hobson. I'm the founder and CEO of Real Life Games, and it's my pleasure to share with you guys our plans for Project Prometheus, where we plan to combine live theatrical entertainment with technology and social interaction like never before. Now, I hope you guys are ready for a long trip, because we're about to jump ahead in time a little bit. The year is 2484. After a century of hard-won peace and reconstruction, the united people of Earth have turned their eyes to a singular goal: the stars. The greatest scientific minds from across the globe have come together to develop what they call the Skip Network, a revolutionary new technology that allows people to teleport across great distances in the blink of an eye. Now, from the moment a guest enters our door until the moment they leave, everything they will experience will be a part of our world building. Greeted by professionals of the Aegis Corporation at a mercenary recruitment facility, guests will begin their journey by creating their playable characters and profiles. Groups of new recruits will then move into the briefing room, where they're informed about their equipment, the park, their roles, and the roles in this new world. Following this briefing, our new mercenaries will be ushered into the next room and experience their first skip, aiming them towards a far-off training facility in nearly an instant. However, upon arrival, guests will find the training facility skip station in disarray. Alarms are buzzing, vision is poor, and screams can be heard down the hall. Before being able to leave the platform, an AI hologram appears before our new guests with a word of warning. Quickly, we're under attack. You must skip ahead to the central hub. Guests will then catch a small glimpse of an unknown alien enemy before the doors are slammed shut and they're sent skipping ahead. Any returning guests will be able to take a streamlined skipping terminal straight to the central hub instead of having to sit through this again. In our main story areas, costume cast members will play the antagonists, armed with their own set of equipment. Aside from key characters, most antagonists will dress identically, allowing them to secretly battle multiple times. And because of this, and to encourage less time standing in line, most of our gameplay options will be available through digital matchmaking queues within the park, similar to what video games are doing now. This will allow us to control party size and flow through our playable areas. Once a player or party's matchmaking queue pops, our system will send character information ahead to designated armory stations where guests will meet up and gear up before play. Using this information, our armory managers will be able to assemble each guest's equipment before their arrival, offering a custom gameplay experience and moving our lines forward efficiently. Now I'd like to transition a little bit into our mission and our plans to accomplish something this large. You see, we plan to create unforgettable live action experiences, and we want to encourage healthy social interaction amongst our guests. With this mission in mind, we've come across and addressed several opportunities in the space. Firstly, very few themed entertainment experiences focus on video game culture, at least not lasting ones. And we've noticed how social interaction is almost non-existent in current theme parks, many of which plan for the individual experience. Third, with technology advancing, people are spending more time dependent on their smart devices. And with these opportunities identified, we plan to use Hollywood effects and storytelling to create a live action video game experience. We'll create scenarios that encourage social interaction and play with the other park guests and encourage those guests to engage in physical activity through experiences that integrate with their current handheld technologies. In this slide, you'll find a small breakdown of the areas we plan to offer within the park using a hub and spoke model. The central hub will host our vendors and restaurants, while outlying areas will be reserved for playable arenas. Some examples of these arenas would be training ground obstacle courses, player versus player and mini game spaces, mission play, and much more. What's unique about us is that we plan to build our play areas using movable modular pieces, able to be detached and rearranged using an indoor overhead crane system. This will allow for cost-effective and efficient redesign of our playable space through thus encouraging return visits as changes happen over time. Views of space can be seen through the various portholes, and using those with indoor changeable digital images and colors, we can effectively create the illusion of space travel for our guests using the skipping stations. The heart of our game system pulls from many different existing technologies and repurposes or modifies them to fit our needs. During gameplay, guests will be equipped with heads-up displays tethered wirelessly to their RFID gun and equipment systems. Once equipped, guest character accounts will then tie in with that gear and host the information accordingly. This data and more will be accessible via the heads-up display during gameplay or on any smart device at any other time. And our modular gun systems will allow for customized play based on each individual's tastes. Most of our revenue streams are traditional to themed entertainment models, like entry tickets, souvenirs, vendors, etc. What's particularly unique about Project Prometheus is our plan to implement custom in-game currency and microtransactions widely used in the freemium video game space with massive success. Two prominent case studies we'd like to present come from Pokemon Go and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I'm sure most of you know or have heard of these. And in the case of Pokemon Go, Niantic created an AR mobile game using a freemium business model that literally required its players to go out, travel, and be active. This new style of combining mobile technology, active movement, and social interaction, tied with a huge IP fan base, led Pokemon Go to a record $207 million opening month and over $2 billion in lifetime sales with a freemium-only model. Galaxy's Edge, another major IP, is a new approach to themed entertainment in the Disney franchise, focusing primarily on theatrical entertainment. They spent over $1 billion in development of the Star Wars themed land, and it's been so successful already, they're planning to launch their Halcyon experience. This is a theatrical hotel expected to charge somewhere around $3,000 for guests that want to travel the galaxy in their new themed experience. This shows the importance of immersive theatrical experiences and technology as we look into the future. Now, at this point, the business is nearing the end of our phase 1 plans. The goal here was to test our market and communicate with our audience by traveling to events with high production live action games. Our first game was designed to test the willingness of our audience to participate in strenuous gameplay. Sumo Sphere was a huge hit in this regard, with many of our guests circling back in line, still sweating to play again. 3 months later, we launched Guardians alongside Sumo. This fast-paced competitive sport inspired by Tron was our first step into the world building of Prometheus. This production averages 400 players a day and 600 on prime days at each event so far, with one installation. Lastly, in February of this year, we launched Aegis Tactical Battleground, a 4,000 square foot arena-style game using RFID equipment and playable character classes. Again, our audience overwhelmed us with positive feedback and a seemingly endless line. Phase 2 lays the groundwork leading into the development of our full-scale park. Our intention is to create a test facility where we can develop new technologies, evolve our current assets, and solidify our business models and strategies before scaling up for phase 3 later on. At approximately 20,000 square foot, this building will house about 14,000 square feet of playable space and be home to our previously created games pictured on the right. The remaining 6,000 square feet will be dedicated to office, workspace, workshops, and other employee areas where we can test our models. We estimate this test facility can be open 4 to 10 months after investment with the purpose of generating sustainable revenue during our phase 3 developments. We're currently seeking a $2 million investment to begin putting together our test facility, improve our existing assets, and plan further into the full-scale park. On the left, you'll see projected revenues based on estimated attendance for this facility. Now, we've gathered from our homework that typical FECs report $60 to $85 income per guest on average throughout the year. And this scaled down model is estimated to operate at approximately $1.16 million a year, with payroll and rent accruing more than 50% of that cost. $500,000 is budgeted for development, with many of our playable assets already in hand, and the remainder was a runway to sustain us during the development times. So, I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys got a good understanding of what you're doing, and I'd love to open the floor up for any questions that you may have.
Fantastic presentation. Well done. Definitely telling the story. Really, great job. Great job. Again, on the tech side, it's really very interesting. I think part of the thing that we've seen on a lot of the pitch fests is, having a game plan, COVID or non-COVID. And one of the things that kind of hit me on this one is a couple different things. One is that you could actually gamify the concept of social distancing, as well as any sort of UV sterilization or moving in and out of different realms and sterilizing individuals with it being a part of the story. So that's one thing I thought was very interesting. The second thing is that we've been kind of pulled into a lot of repurposing of mall real estate There's a lot of real estate that's just going up for grabs. So your
Hmm.
concept about modularity with respect to being able to use an existing structure is absolutely fantastic. Really fantastic presentation. I'm going to start off with Lexington, because one of the other things is that, you've definitely presented a good investment thesis, and something that that definitely is quantifiable. Lexington?
Yes, thank you, Carrie. Very well done, Nick. That was a great presentation. So one question I have is about your phase one. Can you provide us a couple of additional details? Because it was just a little bit light. You mentioned you had several hundred attendees,
Hmm.
and you had some really positive feedback, and it was on
Absolutely.
one. Yeah,
So
just
we
more on
decided
that.
uh, our target market was facing video game culture, people that are very into storytelling and in-depth, people that maybe would attend Renaissance Fair. So we partnered with a company, DreamHack. We launched at their events around the country as our testing facilities. Sumosphere, we built with a designer, a little bit more of a safe route, again, to test the strenuous gameplay. It was an interesting experience for us. This is my first time doing an expo, so we actually hand moved everything into the hall, which was a terrible mistake. And we set it up, and we were shocked to find out we had to close our lines about an hour and a half early just to go on a lunch break. And when we come back, we had 80, 90 people already waiting to play again. And this was a game that was so physically taxing that people were almost crawling out of the spheres at the end. Um, and
And
then
you
at
had
the
return players,
Mhm.
people that had already played got back in line.
Yeah, we pushed about 1,100 people through the game in 3 days, and I'd say about 35% of those were return players.
Wow.
Okay.
Um, it
And
was it
did you do
was
an
positive.
extensive survey with the group?
We didn't do an extensive survey. The team was small, and we were focusing on running the event. We did ask
Good.
as they were entering and leaving, and mostly their feedback was based on the amount of time they can physically play. Sometimes they felt it was too long, too
Right.
short, and that helped us dial it in. So when we launched Guardians, we were able to actually fit 16 players a game head to head, pushing our numbers to over 1,200 in a weekend. And then allow for a more competitive play at a proper time. And then
And-
when we launched Aegis, we carried that over as well.
Okay. And the majority of them wanted to return?
Absolutely. Yeah. Guardians, actually, 1 year later to the launch of Guardians, we showed up and we had players from the previous year in a new city that had shown up and were sitting in front of our line before we opened, waiting for us to get there.
Okay, that's encouraging. Thank you. I'll
Yep.
pass it on to the next. Thank
You
you.
know, I can literally feel Freddie. I can feel Freddie, like jumping out of Calico Mine. By the way, it kind of looks rainbowish, so I just want to make
Yeah.
sure you're
Rainbow
familiar.
fast.
Yeah, okay, you're good with that. Okay, so
Yeah.
Freddie, it's all yours.
So what got me sort of excited, and I loved the image of the hub where you had the the central circle there in the middle, and then the colored the color coded areas around it. Right, that one. What? So my creative side started going, and you talk about having groups come in, and they get called into that central place where you have retail and food.
Mhm.
And it sounds to me, I'm just trying to get an understanding of the experience, but you can assign people or send people into one of these rooms and almost rotate through all players back into the center, and not even realize that you've got the people wouldn't realize that they're having an entirely different experience than the others around. So what came to mind, and the question I have is, are you able to see that purple room on the far right? Could you feasibly send the same group back into that new room with fresh lighting and new images passing by out the window, and sort of over offer? You could give them so much that they wouldn't even realize they've been in the same room. Is that am I catching the concept right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we only had 8 minutes to pitch. We have much deeper plans creatively. One of those is using video game tools like the Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
If any of you went to GDC the last couple of years, there's also a piece of technology they use for motion tracking and live time. And that'll allow you to track the player's movement in the room and objects So we can actually do things like nuclear power batteries that they have to pick up and move across the room. And those are interchangeable props that we can take in and out, and offer a different experience through each one. And the beauty of our skipping stations is that you'll see, here's one over here, and then we'd add one for each armory station. And then we would use sliding walls and doors to create the illusion that you're coming in and going out of the same door, and it would lead you to a new different area. So even though we've looped you around through a full circle back into our vending space, you would have thought you went to a space station that's over by Mars based on our images and what our story's telling you, and come back. Most of the story elements will be handled via video logs through their phones and heads-up displays, digital communications, and voice communications. So many of our stuff is canned and repeated automatically, and then we'll have those actors roaming the park as well to add additional realism to that experience, so that they don't have to repeat the same quest over and over, but everybody's getting the same information.
Yeah, I really like the modular control you have to.
Cheryl, do you have anything that you'd like to add in here?
First of all, it was a beautiful presentation. I know you only had 8 minutes, so thank you for giving us as much as you possibly could. I love the concept. I play a lot more in the FEC world, and I see this as taking that immersive experience to that whole next level. Can you help me understand a little bit more what your, based on the model that we're looking at right now, your throughput? What's the number of capacities and how many people can you get through? And what are you charging per person?
Well, for the small scale test facility, we're anticipating around 45,000 people a year, which is only a couple hundred people a day average. At 16,000 square feet, we plan to have about 7 square feet a person minus bathroom space and playable area. So that should put us at a maximum of around 1,100 people through the door in a day. And then when we get to the full scale park, we would actually be anticipating closer to 350,000 in the first year, and 500,000 or so by year 5, based on the fact that we're trying to create a much more immersive experience for each person. So it takes a little bit more space and time. And the capacity on that at the large scale facility being around 200,000 square feet, or approximately 10 times the test facility, we're hoping to fit about 2,000 people a day on our prime days.
Okay. Sorry, I gotta facilitate. I apologize. I'm not trying to be rude. Bill, or it's Gerald, do you have another question?
Go ahead. I know we're short on time. I just want to point out one thing, that some centers that have tried the immersive, and when you add all the extra characters and people to interact and engage, you've just got to keep an eye on your payroll percentage.
Absolutely.
People get slammed on that and don't even. So I'm other questions.
Yeah, we wanted to approach that with most of our content being digital, and then just offering few select characters walking the park at a time. So. Okay.
But great, thank you. And
thank you.
Bill, do you have any nope, or yes or no, or no? Okay, cool. Nate, how about you?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about the skipping stations. I did go through your PDF beforehand. The one thing I might mention is you take a look at how they did it at Poseidon's Fury at Islands of Adventure. They skipped basically changed room by flying in a set. And what they would do is, it's a giant flashing strobe, and then the one set flies up, the other one flies down. It's completely quiet, and they've changed you and moved your location in a matter of 5 seconds. It's a pretty cool effect. So versus sliding, where you're going to get friction. So
absolutely.
With respect to throughput, I think Cheryl's question was with respect to per hour. In other words, how long is the experience, and how many people can you push through in an hour? Because that's a math problem. You take the throughput times the ticket price, and that's your revenue essentially per hour.
Yeah, absolutely. So our plan is to have a low entry cost to allow people into the central hub, encouraging them to buy from our hub and eat and hang out. When they're digital queue pops, we plan for the mission areas to take about an hour each. And based on the modular, if you imagine it like the snake, if we see over here, every other section would be empty. And that allows our actors to change their locations and prepare the next room. So we'll move them simultaneously. So if you have a chain of 10 in the snake, you'd have 5 rooms occupied at a time. And then each group would move forward at set designated times that we program into the system. So the doors would open at a certain time, the group would move forward, it'd close, the next group would move into the room behind them. And that would allow us a maximum amount of throughput. We have not gone far enough into the design to specify the exact number that would be, but it would be able to accommodate our 2,000 person a day goal fairly seamlessly at this point.
Awesome.
Nathan was absolutely correct that where I was going was in that direction.
Absolutely.
And I agreed that I love the fact that your modules can easily be moved, but the amount of time and effort and energy, the example he gave you is so flawless. One comes, other comes in, boom.
Beautiful. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
and being one person who's actually paid rent on retail space is extremely expensive to pay for 20,000 square feet. So I feel like you need to be attached to something. A Renaissance fair is a perfect example where you have, hundreds, if not thousands of your target demographic already there. I would, show up at every Comic-Con with a mobile version of your event.
Absolutely.
And and then beyond that, I don't think it would work in just a failed retail space because you're getting 2-year-olds with their moms on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. I think that it needs to be attached to a large theme park, something with, and I actually was thinking about this last night, something that has more than 1 or 2 million visitors per year. And then you can basically have this as a theme land. You could put it into like a city walk or a downtown Disney where you have enough traffic to make this justifiable. And I think this is the sort of thing where you could get enough sort of volume to make this large footprint work.
Yeah, absolutely. So our plan is, instead of a retail space, we're going to be using warehouse spaces. It'll be a little cheaper on rent and allow us to do the work we need during the days to test during the beta facility. And then as we move forward, we're open to different location options based on how the projections are coming out and how the designs are. The beauty about our design is that it being indoor and modular, movable, we can really go based on what market we end up in. The plan is to be a regional sized park rather than a national sized park at 200,000 square feet. We could then take over, close down Toys R Us.
Sorry,
Walmart.
I apologize. I'm going to have to just cut us off. We are going over great questions, great presentation, and thank you so much.